most dangerous and defining phases yet, as President Volodymyr Zelensky makes an urgent, deeply personal appeal to the United States Congress, while Russian President Vladimir Putin escalates his military offensive with calculated precision. This moment did not unfold slowly over months of diplomacy or drawn-out negotiations. It happened within a single day, a day that reshaped battlefield realities, triggered emergency discussions in Washington, and revealed just how thin the margin has become between containment and catastrophe. What we are witnessing is not merely another chapter in a long war, but a stress test of global resolve, leadership under pressure, and the limits of deterrence. For weeks leading up to this moment, there were signs, quiet, indirect, and easily dismissed by the untrained eye, that Russia was preparing something different. Not official statements, not televised threats, but subtle shifts on the ground. Russian units repositioned without explanation. Supply convoys moved at unusual hours. Communications traffic dipped and then went silent altogether. Military analysts know that this kind of silence is rarely accidental. In modern warfare, quiet often precedes violence. And when Russia goes quiet, history suggests something loud is about to follow. Putin has always been predictable in one sense, his willingness to use pressure as a weapon, but he is also methodical, patient, and deeply strategic. His campaigns follow patterns, testing, probing, escalating, then pausing to assess reactions. This time, however, the pattern broke. The familiar rhythm disappeared. And that disappearance itself became the warning sign. Intelligence agencies in Kyiv, Brussels, and Washington all reached the same conclusion almost simultaneously. Russia was preparing to change the tempo of the war. That change came swiftly. Early in the day, NATO surveillance and allied intelligence sources detected coordinated Russian maneuvers across multiple fronts. These were not symbolic movements or routine rotations. They included armored redeployments, artillery repositioning, missile readiness adjustments, and logistical preparations that had not been seen in months. This was the kind of posture Russia only adopts when it is sending a message either to escalate, to intimidate, or to force its opponents into difficult choices. What made the situation even more alarming was the ambiguity. Observers could not immediately determine whether this escalation was meant to launch a broader offensive, test Western red lines, or pressure Ukraine and its allies into negotiations on Moscow's terms. It may have been all three at once, but one thing was clear. Russia was no longer content to wait. Within hours, Russian forces launched coordinated attacks targeting Ukrainian supply routes, command relay points, and logistical hubs, critical nodes that keep defensive lines functioning. These were not random strikes. They were designed to weaken Ukraine's ability to sustain resistance over time. Analysts describe the operation as an attempt to strike the backbone of Ukraine's defense, not necessarily to win immediately, but to make continued resistance more costly and more uncertain. This is the moment that forced an immediate response from Kyiv. And President Zelensky did not choose quiet diplomacy. He chose urgency. He chose visibility. He chose to speak directly to power. By the end of the day, Zelensky addressed the U.S. Congress in one of his most direct and emotionally charged appeals since the war began. This was not a ceremonial address filled with rhetoric or symbolism. It was a plea grounded in battlefield reality. He warned lawmakers that delays in aid translate directly into lives lost. That hesitation now could alter the course of the war in ways that would be impossible to reverse later, and that Ukraine, while still holding the line, cannot do so indefinitely without sustained support. Behind the scenes, U.S. officials described Russia's move as calculated, provocative, and deliberately timed to exploit political uncertainty in the West. Aid packages delayed by legislative gridlock, public fatigue after years of conflict, competing global crises pulling attention elsewhere. From Moscow's perspective, this was a moment to test whether Western resolve had weakened. But the test did not produce the response Russia may have hoped for. Ukraine did not collapse. Ukrainian forces responded with discipline and coordination. Air defense systems intercepted missile barrages aimed at infrastructure. Defensive counterstrikes slowed Russian advances. Intelligence units disrupted coordination behind enemy lines. This was not reckless escalation. It was controlled resistance, designed to buy time and preserve capability. At the same time, Washington reacted with unusual urgency. Senior officials made clear, both publicly and privately, that the United States was not prepared to allow a Ukrainian collapse triggered by delay or indecision. Diplomatic language became sharper, warnings more explicit. Behind closed doors, emergency briefings replaced routine updates. What makes this moment especially dangerous is the pressure on all sides. Zelensky is balancing competing demands from allies, some urging negotiations, others calling for stronger military